Hideaway. Mankichi, who suddenly looked into the garden of Shigarito through the fence of a wooden mallet with the intention of asking the way, moved his eyes and killed only the voice that was about to come out to his mouth. However, at last, I came back with a sneak peek regardless of anything. What's wrong? It was Ikehikiro Tawara who was waiting in the dark that went on to blame. Mankichi, with a smirk, whispered to Ikehikiro's ear, pointing his finger at the back of Shigarito again. My husband. I'm sure there's someone in Asuko. Look at me a little longer. Look, the two guys are doing something with the lanterns on the porch. It seems that I just put out a basin in the garden and finished bathing, but what did that happen? One person is certainly an injured person. You see, the man on the side is wiping his body so that he touches the swelling. From here, he can only see his face, but now he's over the fence. How about it? It's a lot of waiting milk. Well, that one. There is no mistake because it is a face that I remember repeatedly at Tennoji Temple and Dobashiya. By the way, the one who is on the side and taking care of him is the man who claims to be his boss Jingoro. Ikehikiro heard from Mankichi what happened next time. I don't know if the arabesque and the waiting milk have the same purpose as ourselves, but I also knew that they were trying to enter the secret boundaries of Awa, so by chance this was the whereabouts of the good ones. When I asked him, he secretly screamed. Speaking of which, one may be the arabesque Jingoro. One night, Taichi, who had just thought that he had been cut off by Sunbei at the Kayabashiguchi, would use such a place as a hideout for medical treatment. I didn't even notice my dream. Mankichi vaguely looks around in an unexpected reality. On the contrary, Ikehikiro's brain began to think about the interests of this strange situation with terrifying precision and speed. Both of them are trying to enter the secret boundary of Awa, and they are also trying to find out the inside of Awa for a long time. Coincidentally, the purpose is the same Hachisuka family, so if you talk to each other, there must be something that will be of mutual benefit. Jingoro and Taichi should be familiar with Oki-sama, who is going to ask all the way from now on, even if they take a step back and have different purposes. Anyway, let's visit one and see it. I decided to do this, so when I consulted with Mankichi, there was no objection to Mankichi. He quietly came back and pushed the garden-like shibari door, so that he wouldn't be surprised over there. I politely called out, I'll ask you a little. At the edge of Shigarito, Jingoro had Taichi use a medicinal bath to apply wounds and take care of his yukata. Who are you? When Jingoro's eyes glowed into the darkness, Ikehikiro and Mankichi came in and someday, pushing Kido. It's a rude question, but if you're a person named Karakusa Jingoro, don't you think? Jingoro was scared. The suspicion that he was a Hachisuka clan singer made him alert. Looking at the situation, Mankichi also came forward. I won't hide it, I'm sure you've seen Mr. Taichi there in the precincts of Tennoji. Behind Jingoro, he said as Taichi remembered. Then, did you take off my pelvic girdle at that time? Yes, Mankichi is a minion. Also, there is a former Tenma concentric Tawara Ikehikiro. Suddenly, such a noisy guy jumps into your hideout, and it's no good. You may be suspicious, but I'm not a Hachisuka clan. Let's leave this to that place first so that you can rest assured. Mankichi pulled out Konbo's jit and pulled out the porch. It started to pop. Jingoro was looking at it and the sudden face of the customer, but he must have been courageous. Regain his calm. I don't know what you're doing, but anyway, please come here. He took off only 2 mosquito net hangers and sat snugly on the side of Wakizashi. This seems to be a good discussion. While Ikehikiro and Mankichi were unraveling the straw sandals, a white figure quietly went out from another door of Shigarito. The cold breeze, including rain, feels like autumn. After taking 5 or 6 steps, the figure in a white coat stands up in the turbulent sky with a little care. Even if you look at the slender outline of the height, and the fact that you are carrying a shakuhachi in your hand, you can see that it is the Kamuso of the same inn, Genisuk Kozuki. Genisuk was walking through the shortcut behind Otsu to the shores of the lake. In Biwa, there is a lot of noise tonight, there is no tea house light between pine trees, and there is no figure to cool down. On the contrary, Genosuke wanders in the darkness of meditation, which he brings back and forth, rather than blowing the shakuhachi he carried. Everyone of Oki will wonder where he is at this time. I mutter to ourselves in an avidity. During this time, Jingoro may have shed tears and followed his hands. Takagi of the Koga family, who is about to fall down, Shiesama, who has no reliance on this world the power to support it, there is no one other than you to save it. At that time, my attitude looked like cold blood. Oh, I'm cold-blooded, Jingoro's hot-blooded squirting request, and his lover's unfortunate circumstances are abandoned, and I don't care about this Hozuki Genosuke, even if he is accused of cold-blooded, he can explain it. A man who can't. That habit, I have never forgotten the name Okisama. It's the same as it used to be now, even stronger love is burning constantly than it was back then. Oh. Sit down to the root of the pine tree, and with his forehead lying down on his knees, one day, the shakuhachi hugging him was thought of as Okisama. The Sumi mansion in Surugadai, where the lover lives, and the nostalgic Edo tradition, are depicted in the mist of meditation. However, in Hogetsu Genosuke's chest, there was a situation in which he could not step on the soil of Edo, which he was attached to. That is why he has abandoned his home, abandoned his lover, and drifted from Edo to the outside world, from journey to journey. The sky of Edo that cannot be returned. The sound of the shakuhachi, which occasionally touches and sends the troubles of longing, may go to Okisama's dream, but Jingoro did not know it. No, not only Jingoro, but no one knows the loneliness of human suffering hidden in the heart of the emotional youth swordsman Hozuki Genosuke. After Genosuke went out at Shigurito, Ikehikiro Tawara and Menkichi gradually talked, and revealed the fact that they have been struggling to find out the secret of Awa since the change of the Horiki calendar, so Jingoro also said I wondered if that was the case for the first time, and then I decided to talk to them about my surname, and the circumstances between Okisama and Zimi. If you confide in this way, the purpose of Zimi Koga's entry into Awa 10 years ago, and the purpose of Ikehikiro, and Kozan Takai's heartbreaking since the Horiki calendar coincide with each other by chance. It became clear. If everything was known from the beginning, Menkichi would have helped them, of course, and Jingoro and Taichi might have been able to successfully enter Awa by this time without so much trouble. There is no such thing, but in return, the fact that Atsuna scooped up that paper case began to cause the thread to become tangled, and everything went astray, which is a common mischief of fate, and it is a must. However, from now on, let's work together to the extent that we can hold the key to the big mystery of Awa. Ikehikiro Tawara has something to be enthusiastic about, bawled the rest. Taichi, a sick person, heard it and smiled from the bed. As Jingoro, he met his unexpected comrades and remembered his strength, but also in part of his heart. Even though there are such people in the world, I wonder if that Mr. Genosuke had no idea about the life of Mr. Oki. He could not help but grudge the ruthless treatment. Tonight's was Shigurito, and when Ikehikiro and Menkichi got to the floor of another room, a large amount of rain blew into the sideways. It also stopped occasionally, and it seems that the night was quite late, but Genosuke hasn't returned yet, and an eerie monster bird flaps around the top of Mt. Osaka. The summit of Seiki's Myojin embraced the avid Biwa, and avoided the world here, with the secret song of Semimaru Michishi extended to the mountain breeze, hiding the old cedar sky, and leaving no one to step on the moss flowers. It is wrapped. Just when a silver kabato that no one knew went down to the back cliff of Kadasiki. When the old man, who was thin like a Semimaru, put a dreadful dinner set in a corner of the company house and took chopsticks. Who is this? Is there a priest here? At the front door, there was a samurai family of Jiraiya Saya who stood up. When the priest who went out there in a hurry saw the samurai standing in the midst of the mosquitoes wandering, his face was deeply wrapped in kumagai kasa, and Jiraiya's scabbard carved in vermilion on the wild scabbard, I do not remember seeing it at all, was a person. Who would you like to play with? First, let's play here. No, please loosen up here. Actually, I'd like to ask you a little, said the samurai, pointing his chin to the upper mountain, and saying, you can see the forehead of Semimaru's shrine at the top. I'd like to borrow it only tonight, but there's nothing wrong with it. The priest made a slightly strange face, saying, "What is the Hakukudo?" "It's vacant as usual, so there's nothing wrong with it, but what on earth do you use it for?" "You may be suspicious, but this is actually the case. I'm a Kurioshiki person with an Osaka table, but I want to talk with my colleagues and hold a Rengda event with a different taste. If it's a mountain temple, it's elegant and quiet, so I'd like to rent it only tonight." "Oh, I see. Do you have a luck with Rengda?" "It's a fashionable thing. If it's such an event, please don't hesitate to use it. I can't stand it with my immediate knowledge. In addition, if you need it, I will carry about a stringent tea from here. It seems to be selfish, but I want to refuse it firmly. I came to an inconvenient place because I wanted to enjoy the Rengda quietly. Only tonight, even if someone else goes to the mountain, I will go up from now on. I don't want you to come." I'm sorry. "Then, I'll not bother you, so please relax and hold it." The priest saw off the samurai who was leaving, and returned to the table without any doubt. I started taking Chizuki chopsticks. After leaving the gate of the shrine, the samurai of Jiraiya's scabbard gave a tentative reassurance to the priest, and as if he was relieved, he still turned right and left, climbed the stone steps wet with moss and water, and eventually God Sabi walked toward the priest's hall with the stairs. In the half-decayed section of the forehead, the statue of Semimara holding a biwa, the painting of Sakiji Komachi, and a large amount of the bird's-eye view of Hakiai, make the whitewash feel like rain and dew, and dust and spiders. It was hung on the web. However, it can be seen by people who visited here in the daytime, and now the entire forehead, and the mountains of the four surroundings are at the top of the table, and the shadow of the samurai who came here in a stride from the company house is immediately in the forehead. It has been drowned out in the darkness of. When I thought about it, a number of low whispers naturally raised their voices and leaked from there. If you look closely, there are at least 20 people in the forehead, who are holding cross-legged legs, leaning against pillars, sitting in columns, and doing strange things in a strange way. It was like the words I refused to the priest. I thought that I was trying to sing a Rengda with the unobstructed seats of the forehead, as I wanted the mountain storm of the night cool, and the eyes were all light in the darkness. On the faces of the samurai who are screaming, no one can see such a style, and no one is thinking about riding a brush. If there is a person who is moving in one corner, take out the prepared black cloth, and hang it on the mask of the face, or the sword fittings, and pull out the sword of the waist and spill the blade. There is a person who is renewed. Then, from the cliff of Kadasiki, there are masks of 7 or 8 people who climbed up here again. From the bottom of the forehead, a samurai who preceded the inside. He called him Mr. Tendo, Mr. Tendo. Oh, it was the samurai of Jiraiya's scabbard, that is, the corner of Hachisuka's Hirashi Tendo. Nodding, no, Mr. Mori, one corner came down from the top of the forehead. While climbing here from the back cliff, the boatman Kinasuke Mori and Yasuke Kuki were mixed. Both are similarly masked, so at night it's hard to tell who they are. What about Shigurito? It doesn't seem to have changed. Jingoro and other guys, Yamoya, I'm not aware of this handiwork. I don't feel like that. I was watching from the back of Kadasiki from the evening until now, but the other side is quiet without noticing anything. Then, it's completely a mouse in a bag. First, let's wait for the end of the night at that for a while. But Mr. Tendo. At that time, it was Yasuke who changed his mind from the side. Only one, I met a strange guy on my way back to this. To a strange person? I don't know where it came from, but there was a mess of people reading it all the time, unraveling the thin paper tied to the pigeon. Are you the one who uses the carrier pigeon that you have seen in some books? Or maybe that was the case. Anyway, I glared at the suspicious guy, so when I leaned toward the side and stared at the behavior, I didn't have any rush to escape. It looks like it's going down the mountain. If I didn't catch it, I would have gone through it, but now that I think about it, it seems a little suspicious. And the style and age. One was a samurai style 32-3, and one was a tradesman wearing a benkei lattice kimono. I have no idea, but I'm sorry to have missed the rumor that there is some kind of Tenma Ronin, who is secretly struggling to find out what's going on in his home country. Instead, when he saw me, I hurriedly picked up a thin piece of paper that had been torn into the grass and thrown away. But unfortunately, there was no star shadow, and I was struggling to read it. Kinosuk is very important to me. Kinosuk Mori's companion flew to the place where we were talking like this, while breathing. There is no doubt that the man who saw Mankichi and Ikehikiro on the mountain road down to the foot of the mountain was this companion, considering the time. The day when Kinosuk Mori went to Kawacho. It wasn't the work of Kinosuk, but the morale of this fellow that he put on Okome's sword and found the hideout of Shigurito. So Tendo, Kuki, and Mori gathered in this mountain of Seiki with 8 or 9 samurai each *, 2 characters, January 2nd 22, and this time, water leaked. Under such arrangements, he tries to capture the suspicious Kamiuso, Jingoro, Taichi, etc., who are trying to see the country of Awa. For those who have been blocking the territory of Awa for 7 or 8 years and trying to see the inside of the territory, the Hachisuka family has been terribly nervous until today. Even people other than Goro had to tie up without temporary borrowing and stipulate the purpose. However, even if it is done, it is not open to the public in the daytime, but it is always done in the shade or in the open, so I do not know the world, but it is very common to raise many such suspects in the house. It was an honor and I was happy with the success of the palace. Why? That means that as this story progresses, and at the same time that the main body of Awa is exposed, it will become clearer. Anyway, from the place where Kinosuk's friends were still exploring the state of Shigurito in detail, the time was good and nearly 30 people in black costumes stood up at once. If you go down the back road and go to the right from the middle of Onozaka, you will see a mountain god forest where you can't see a human figure anymore. When you get off there and enter the bamboo grove, you will soon see the only light of Shigurito around here. It's close, so be quiet. Someone sneak into the open space over there. I understand. What's the signal? What should I do? When Mr. Tendo calls out, he cuts it all at once. Such a voice whispered faintly from the sound of bamboo leaves, and a black shadow shook the ground with fluttering, and one day no one could be seen. The night was deep and late. The terrifying silence before the storm. In the sky, there was a group of clouds, and here, on all sides of Shigurito, a group of masks waiting for the time with their appearance and breath. And the only one among them who crawls into the garden with Sarori is Yasuke, who wasn't black. Yasuke's body crawls from the hem of the door pocket to the underfloor, like a fox, wondering if the dew of the night light spilled from the southern sky stalk, which is taller than him. Speaking voice leaking from above. Jingoro and Taichi, and the voices of Ikehikiro Tawara, and Mankichi, who came here on the evening. It was a very low secret story, but in Yasuke's ears it sounds like it's in his hands. Yasuke Kuki was good at not being mischievous with their own hands. Moreover, the whisper that leaked into it gave him an unexpected surprise. Oh, this is a big deal. If we didn't notice it, it might have been a terrible thing that would ruin the house. The spider on the face while removing the nest, he is still holding his breath. Therefore, Yasuke listened to all the confessions between Tawara Concentric and Jingoro. Just right. Those who ask for the secret of the house are exhausted for tonight. I scream in my heart. Furthermore, what Yasuke was pleased with was that the Kamiuso wasn't there only tonight. Even the skillful Tendo Ichikaku stepped on his feet, saying, he's just somehow scary, so he came up with a number of young samurai, who seemed to be Gyosan, but he was scarier than anyone else. If the male enemy that was there is missing, it's better than this. Time. The momentary air was quiet above. For the people of Shigurito, something like the center of a typhoon, the shadow of an invisible demon, and the unfeelable airflow of fate are approaching Mishaku and are surrounding it on the verge. However, neither Mankichi nor Ikehikiro, who have a keen sense of understanding, had a fruit in the story and never knew it. Even if it was too late for the sick, they promised tomorrow's meeting, and they went to bed in another room. Jingoro was alone cleaning up the area, hanging a futon on Taichi, and casually looking up at the sky from the porch. It was raining heavily. From a corner of the darkness that had been silent, suddenly a creepy cold wind shook into a group. Ah! I finally got off. Jingoro hurriedly pulled out one or two shutters in the rain that seemed to blow to the bedside of Tai Chi, but he still frowned with anxiety, and looked out from between the doors. I looked around. I'm in trouble, it's heavy rain. The pale lightning lit the garden. Where did Mr. Genesuk go? If you ask me a little, I'll bring you a run umbrella, but if you go to the town, this is the place. It's going to get wet in the rain. Something's wrong, Mr. Genesuk. I'm strangely flirting around this time, and I haven't even talked to Roku. While muttering toward the rain, Yusuke under the edge began to squeeze into Jingoro's feet before the door closed perfectly. Gently twisting his body to the side and looking up from under the floor, Jingoro's half-body forgets to get wet, and while noticing the return of Genesuk, he is leaking himself again. Maybe I asked so much during this time, so I wonder if I care about it? Or maybe I missed Chiesama as expected. No, if you think so much about Chiesama's body, I can't say that my request up to that point was Oh, I'll ask you already. I'll ask you. No matter how good you are, Genesuk-sama, you can't help but feel merciless. No, if there is a god to throw away, it's a god to help, because I unexpectedly decided to cooperate with people. Mr. Genesuk was unreliable, and with this Jingoro's heart, the inner curtain of Awa. I'll show you how to make Chiesama happy. Involuntarily, I was struck by my tweet and surely tied my masculine lips. And Yusuke, at that time, with an alert eye, immediately from Jingoro's feet, with a voice that put his hand on his mouth. Arabesque boss. I called name.